Good Tuesday morning, everybody. My name is Eli Robinson. I am the Chief Trivia Officer here at Water Cooler Trivia, bringing you Fashion Week. I know, me wearing my very standard Callaway red polo. I'm the person that you would be talking to about Fashion Week, but that was our game this week. We are Water Cooler Trivia. We have a weekly trivia game designed for you, your friends, your coworkers, those that you love, to play with each other to increase camaraderie, have a good time, and hopefully learn a little thing while you're at it. You can find us online at watercoolertrivia.com. You can find me online at Chief Trivia Officer. So let's see what this week's introduction was. Fashion Week is basically a misnomer. It's twice a year. The same four cities hold a week worth of shows back to back in the same order. This month we have New York, London, Milan, and Paris. And with those dates, if you've never followed the festivities, you're really missing out, as getting a first look at next season's collections is an event not to be missed. We asked some fashion questions around these parts, but we thought we'd celebrate the occasion with an entire fashion-themed game. By the way, you look fabulous. So fashion is a great topic for trivia when the questions are written accessibly. In some ways, to use a gendering and heteronormativity, you can think of it as a counterbalance to sports. Fashion questions can certainly often be written in a way that you know it or you don't. Similar to a sports question could be written in the same way. The world of fashion is obviously a lot smaller than the world of sports, but I think that it's just one of those topics that's so fun for people, and there's a lot of media around it, a lot of pizzazz, a lot of celebrities, and so it really lends itself to some pretty great questions. We hope we wrote this week's game in a way that was mostly accessible to people. But there were two questions I wanted to talk about this morning that ultimately were probably the most interesting. Here's what the quizzes, what the scores ultimately looked like. You can see a very large clustering around 8 and 9, ultimately because there were a couple questions that were really, really tough. An average of 7.84. I think when we look at what the ideal results are, maybe 7 and 10 from a frequency perspective would be switched. But ultimately it looks something like this, right? We don't want tons of perfect scores. We want there to be some sort of badge or honor associated with getting a perfect score, but we do want the questions to be accessible and approachable for those who do play our game. So let's talk about the first question, and far and away, maybe our hardest question of the year as far as percent correct. Of the big four cities that host one of the fashion weeks, which one is the furthest south? So this is just kind of like a classic trivia thing to take advantage of, latitudes and longitudes. Depending on how you feel about geography, you may find these questions to be very sophomoric. You may find these questions to be very, very difficult. One of those kind of classic things that Americans hold as a bias that's incorrect is that Europe and the U.S. sit on basically the same latitude. That's not true. The U.S. is actually significantly further south on average than Europe. So this map that I'm showing you guys right here, somebody on the internet overlaid what Europe and the U.S. would look like, and then the pink here is Canada. So you can see in order, London is actually over here as far north as most of the parts of Canada, and then Paris is right here, although it's not on the map. Milan would be located right about here, and then New York City would be down here. So New York City is actually the farthest south of the big four fashion weeks. I don't think that you have to be a fashion expert to know this, but I'm imagining there's a whole bunch of people who are opening their results being like, what the heck? Milan is the furthest of the three European cities south. And it's like, that's correct, but not as far south as New York. The second question I wanted to kind of call your attention to was the penultimate question. So now this question ought to be juicy. French for high sewing. What is the two-word term that refers to the creation of exclusive custom-fitted clothing by hand from start to finish? So the correct answer is haute couture. We did a pretty, hopefully, good job of accepting a whole bunch of different spellings, as haute couture is not the easiest thing, and Hautecoulture maybe. But I wanted to show you guys kind of a series of wrong answers that we received. So asking hard questions is something that's fairly controversial around here, and I would argue that coming up with a two-word French fashion term is not the easiest question that we could ask in the world. But one of the things that we really look at is what are the wrong answers. So did people feel, based on the answers that they actually gave, that the question was fair? And I want to point out, so you find a lot of answers here that start with haute. So at least there were some people that were able to produce that. You see a whole lot of answers that have the word couture in it, right? So you see couture here through the juicy couture answers. So even if you didn't get the answer right, we look at this and we say, okay, 50% of people got it right. That's pretty hard. But there were enough people who likely gave a guess that they felt like they could be right. I don't know about avant-garde or bespoke or whatever it may be, but like we like that. Questions where people have to guess and they have to like throw an uneducated like I doubt this is right. We don't love that because ultimately it's not particularly enabling and can make people feel dumb. Like this though is an example of a really really good hard question that we would have called fair. So we like that 50% of people got it right, but we also like that there were a whole bunch of people out there who were like maybe this will be right. And so we're really happy with kind of how that turned out. We had a really good time here for Fashion Week. Next week, maybe next time around, maybe I'll wear like a boa or something a little bit better than what I'm wearing today. But I'm Eli Robinson with Water Cooler Trivia. We'll be back next week. Until then, keep on tribbing on.